We like to think we know the story of medicine. It's this neat, tidy progression of one genius after another. But what if one of the most important chapters, the discovery of how our own blood flows, was basically torn out of the history books and just forgotten for centuries? Let's dig into that story.
So let's just start with what seems like a simple question. Who was the first person to actually figure out how blood circulates through our bodies?
Now, if you went to school anywhere in the West, chances are you learned it was this guy, the English physician William Harvey. He published his amazing work in 1628, and, well, that's pretty much the end of the story, right? Case closed. Well, not even close. What if I told you the correct theory was actually published 400 years earlier? That the real story belongs to a genius that history just decided to forget? This is where we get into a medical mystery that was literally buried in archives for over 400 years. So, the trail goes cold until 1936. Picture this. A medical student is deep inside a German archive, and he comes across this dusty old manuscript. He has absolutely no idea he's holding a document that could completely flip our understanding of medical history on its head. And that incredible manuscript, it led historians straight to this man, our forgotten Arab genius. His name is Ibn Al Nafis. He was born back in the 13th century, and he was so brilliant that he rose to become the chief physician at one of the most advanced hospitals in the entire world, right there in Cairo. But what's really key to our story is that he was this fascinating combination of a deeply religious man and a totally fearless scientific freethinker. And to really get a sense of his world, you have to realize that Al Nafis was living during the absolute chaos of the Mongol invasions. This is a time that a lot of Western historians used to just write off as the end of the Islamic Golden Age. But Cairo, where he worked, it was spared all that destruction. In fact, it was a booming, thriving center for intellect and amazing achievements. And it was right there, in that thriving city, that Al Nafis got ready to overthrow a medical idea that had been treated as fact for 1,000 years. Okay, so to really grasp how huge his breakthrough was, you have to understand this one name, Galen. For 1,000 years, the entire medical world, and I mean even brilliant people like Ibn Sina, they all believed Galen's theory. They thought blood just kind of seeped through these invisible pores in the wall of the heart. But then, in 1242, Al Nafis just comes out and says, nope, you're all wrong. That wall is solid. The blood has to be going somewhere else. And he wasn't quiet about it either. He just refuted Galen point blank based on his own observations. Listen to his words. He said, the heart has neither a visible passage nor an invisible one, as was alleged by Galen. That is a direct surgical takedown of a 1,000-year-old dogma. It's incredible. So if blood's not going through these imaginary pores, then where does it go? Well, Al Nafis laid it all out crystal clear. This is the very first known description of what we call pulmonary circulation. He figured out that blood goes from the right side of the heart to the lungs, it mixes with air there, and then it comes back to the left side of the heart, all ready to be pumped out to the rest of the body. This is literally the foundation of how we understand our bodies today. He published this revolutionary idea in 1242, which leads to the really big question. Why did it then just fall into a 4-century-long silence, at least in the West? And the mystery here actually gets deeper on 2 different levels. First, there's a personal one. A historian who is actually Al Nafis's own classmate wrote this huge who's who of all the famous doctors of the time and doesn't mention him, not once. Was it professional jealousy? Maybe. But the second mystery is the big one. How did this world-changing discovery just completely vanish from the radar of Western history for 400 years? And here's the crazy part. The proof wasn't really lost. It was there the whole time, basically hidden in plain sight inside medical books and commentaries just like this one. It was being copied and preserved, but it was completely unknown to the scholars of the European Renaissance. So just look at how this idea starts to pop back up. Al Nafis publishes his work in 1242. Now fast forward 300 years. All of a sudden, a guy named Michael Servetus describes the exact same process in Europe. Then, a few years later, Rialdus Columbus does too. And finally, in 1628, William Harvey publishes his famous complete model. It's like a trail of echoes. But where did the original sound come from? You see, rediscovering Ibn Al Nafis isn't just about giving credit to one forgotten man. It actually forces us to start rewriting scientific history itself.
And to really get why Al Nafis is so important today, we have to talk about this old, kind of damaging idea in history that some people call the refrigerator theory. It's this Orientalist viewpoint that basically said that Arab and Muslim scientists weren't really innovators. They just acted like a refrigerator, you know? They just preserved the old Greek knowledge until Europe was ready for its renaissance to unfreeze it and start using it again. But here's the crucial point. Ibn Al Nafis absolutely demolishes that theory. He didn't just copy and preserve Galen's 1,000-year-old ideas. He actually tested them, found they were wrong, and then corrected them based on evidence and observation. That is not preservation. That is the very heart of what we call scientific progress. So, of course, this leads us to the ultimate question, right? Did William Harvey, or the European guys before him like Servetus and Columbus, did they actually know about the work of Ibn Al Nafis? And the honest answer is, we don't have a smoking gun. There's no letter from Harvey saying, hey, I just read Al Nafis's book. The circumstantial evidence is really compelling, but it's not totally definitive. But honestly, proving that direct link almost misses the bigger point. The story of Ibn Al Nafis proves that the history of science isn't some simple relay race from Greece to Rome to Renaissance Europe. It's so much more complex, more interconnected, and way more global than we were taught. And it really leaves us with this one last powerful question. If a mind this brilliant could be forgotten for 400 years, it just makes you wonder what other geniuses and what other incredible discoveries has history simply left behind.